Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Maybe good morning if you're on the West Coast, like Dr. Dani Cabral is. I'm here with the one and only Dr. Dani Cabral today. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I
Of
am doing
course.
great. How are you?
I'm so good. I've been so excited about this podcast. It's been in the works for a couple of months now, so I'm happy to finally have you here with us.
Same.
Per usual, we're going to go ahead and dive right in with our lightning round questions. So, Dr. Cabral, complete this sentence for me. If I could ban one myth about Alzheimer's forever, it would be.
There's nothing you can do.
Oh, I love that. What's your go to brain food when you need to think clearly?
Ooh, I love this question. So for me, it would be a smoothie
Ooh.
with fruit, and I add some things like granola, chia seeds, water in the blender. So easy. They have these smoothie blenders that are so easy to clean now. So it's like my go-to, like every day. It's amazing.
And it's so convenient too, because you can just like take it really easily on the go. Love it. I love it. And then, kind of on that same vein, is there like an overrated brain food that you can think of?
Sorry, I missed that. Say that
Oh,
again.
is there an overrated brain food
Oh,
that you can?
overrated brain food. Um, I would say anything that you think is going to solve all your problems, or is going to prevent Alzheimer's, or these diseases of aging. There's no one thing that will do the job. It's really a whole person, whole life systems perspective, which in some ways feels more complicated, but also is the route to feeling resilient and healthy.
That's such a good answer. That actually makes a lot of sense. And what would you say the best brain exercise is that's not a crossword puzzle?
Ooh, nice. I would say anything that you do with another human being that you enjoy and care about.
Look at that social connection. I love it. I feel like that always comes up when we do talk about brain health, like the importance of social connection. And I have like 4 questions lined up about that. So I'm really excited that you brought that up this early. And can you give our audience a good brain investment, maybe under $50?
Yeah. Goes along with my answer to the last question is that I actually think the best investment is not like a brain game or a tech. It's actually getting involved in a group or a club, getting a membership to something that's under $50, where you're going to be engaging in activity that you like in a consistent way, and ideally with other people. If you like being around other people, not everyone does, and I respect that, but it's about getting out there, trying new things, growing new muscles, and you can do that for $50 or much less in many ways.
Yeah, you could do that for free in many cases,
Yeah, for
actually.
sure.
So heck yeah, that is a good piece of advice right there. So, those at home who may not know, Dr. Cabral is a neurologist and a psychiatrist who specializes in Alzheimer's. And she recently made, maybe not recently, a few years ago, made the bold decision to leave traditional medicine and open her own clinic called BrainLove, which is an Alzheimer's clinic. So I guess my question is, what was the aha moment that made you realize you needed to do things differently? And maybe tell us about the philosophy behind the name and how how it shapes your approach to patient care.
Yeah, thank you. So I was in a large hospital system at a memory clinic, seeing patients and families, doing clinical trials and research, and definitely we state of the art. We had all the bells and whistles there, and felt like I was contributing. But patients and families were still seemed to that they weren't getting all that they needed, and kind of the same things. They were disappointed, and often like, why didn't anyone tell me this? Why didn't I know this? Why didn't I know this was gonna, like, why couldn't I have been more prepared? And I would think, like, it seems like there are patterns that happen with patients and families, and why can't we change the system so they can be more proactive instead of reactive, right? Like, we hear that a lot in our healthcare system in many ways. So that's what I was seeing. And then internally in this world I was in, for me, I kept trying to bring my ideas to light and talk about them, and like wanting to change things in a very exuberant way that I noticed like my approach wasn't working in that system. So at first I was and I think this is also a commentary maybe on being a female in these, systems, that my voice when I was expressing myself was first viewed as, it was called too accommodating. Like I was so eager to do things, and then I was frustrated because nothing was changing, or not too much was changing from my perspective, and it was maybe the narrative changed toward me being called negative. And that happens when people feel like you're trying to like change or destroy their systems that they've created. And so I was just like, you know what, like they're doing great things at this place, and I have all these ideas, and I have this philosophy, like I want to like have no regrets when I'm on my deathbed, and I want to try these things, and I have all these ideas, and so I'm going to have to step outside of that now, and try them and find a way to try them and create a different system where people who enter into this system of BrainLove also see the possibilities. And so the mission is really to transform the narrative about what's possible, while we address the challenges of aging and of diseases like Alzheimer's disease.
Absolutely.
But open up people's eyes to, there's so much left. There's so much there. We can still even grow. There's neuroplasticity, as we know, that happens with age still. And there's many things that can be changed for the person and the family. And so the name BrainLove came from shifting that perspective from everything just declines and goes downhill when you get these diseases and they're progressing, to let's focus on what's there. Let's go to that, I'll just say it, like that touchy-feely place that we tend to downgrade in Western medicine because
taboo.
Well, and like, yeah, we don't have the technology to know all the biologic substrates of social connection and of love and touch, and like all, science is more open to looking at these things, but our technologies are limited. We only have certain ways we can look at the brain and the body. And so, so I'm putting that forward. I'm saying, like, there are practices that have continued throughout the entirety of humanity, and we are downgrading them, like human touch, because we don't know how to study it and measure it very well. So we're saying it doesn't actually help yet. In my work, consistently I've seen these things, these touchy-feely things do help. So we upgrade these in BrainLove to be equally or maybe more important than like the medical piece, but truly you need all of them. And I fully am a Western trained physician, and I want people to have all of the advances that we found in that space also.
But it's, I guess, like, I don't know why, maybe I've seen this theme oftentimes where it's like, it's either or. And a lot of the times you can do both. Like, you can very much combine these two very, I guess, like proven in science methods and proven time and time again, and combine the two of them and make something really, really beautiful, which I feel like is what you're doing here right now. And you're actually, I love that you touched on so many different amazing things just in that one question. But the fact that, touching on being a woman in like a quote unquote, I guess, position of power, it is difficult. And there are more things that you have to do in order to kind of like have your voice heard. And what better way to do that than open your own clinic and be the boss, because that's, I love it. I just really, really do love it. And, you are, for our audience at home, you're one of the rare physicians who is board certified in both neurology and psychiatry. So I guess, does this influence the way that you've designed BrainLove, and maybe a couple of examples of things that you can do at BrainLove that maybe you haven't been able to do in the past in traditional medicine settings?
Yeah, I think having that dual training like my professional identity is like interdisciplinary at the core. And so to be real specific, I guess, in concrete ways, how I bring this into the care, and I always have, but is I can sit down with the person and family and listen and receive the information they're giving about what they've gone through, and just asking the right questions and creating a space for that, and being silent at the right times can be therapeutic in itself. But then what I can do is really think deeply and intensely about what is going on in their brain. And I'm doing a full neurologic exam, and I'm putting all these pieces together, and I'm reviewing the imaging, the brain imaging, and understanding these things in a way, and then integrating them, and then thinking about the whole family system. And so that provides a more holistic treatment plan that people appreciate.
Yeah.
And then with BrainLove, the practice and the business, what I've been able to do is, so we just started seeing patients a few weeks ago. We have a membership model where we have 3 options. And so we have the patient only membership, the care partner only membership, or the dual patient plus care partner. So the unique feature there is that as a psychiatrist, I can be the mental health provider for the care partner who maybe is experiencing stress, burnout, overwhelm, or they want to prevent that. And so what's cool, what is exciting to me about this is any care partner for someone with progressive cognitive changes like Alzheimer's disease can sign up on their own. They don't have to have their person as a patient in our clinic. And we focus on them and themselves in their own right. And how do you take care of yourself? How do you fill your cup? What's important to you? And, there's a lot that goes with caregiving and especially women, really take that on as like, it's like, I'm going to be the best caregiver, and men too, but I'm going to be the best caregiver I can be. And like that caregiver hat becomes like sewn onto their head, and they can't take it off to like remember and devote time to all that other things that are who they are. And then that's what leads to this imbalance and this burnout. So it's like, by someone coming in for that care partner membership, they get permission to invest time in themselves. And the irony is that their person does better when they're feeling better.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we see this all the time at CareIA because for the most part, I engage with the family caregivers and the care partners rather than the patient themselves. And so often they forget that they need love and care as well, and they need to be taking care of themselves. And I get it. It's difficult. It is very, very hard being a family caregiver. I mean, I feel like most of us know is one of the hardest jobs in the world that you don't really sign up for or get paid for. So it's something, and I love that you have a whole section dedicated to that, because I do believe that genuinely probably really improves the care experience for the care recipient too in the process, which is really, really awesome. And you did touch on, mood disorders and like psychiatry and things like that. And I've read that there's this like fascinating intersection between depression, anxiety, and general cognitive decline. So can you maybe break down the chicken and egg relationship there? And are mood disorders a symptom, a cause, or just something else entirely?
Yeah, I'd say all of the above is the answer to that last question. But so the way generally, just overall, with anyone who has mood changes, especially when they're in an intense depression, anxiety, and even grief, profound grief. So what those things are doing is they're taking away lots of resources from your brain that would be used for your thinking, your cognition, your higher cognitive functions, especially those things like planning, multitasking, organizing. And so you can think about any of us, if we're deeply anxious or depressed, like we're not thinking straight usually, like no matter the age. And also often when you have those mood changes, you also maybe aren't sleeping well. And so then that like the sleep disruption impacts your thinking too. So, but at 25, if that's happening to you, it's not Alzheimer's disease. I mean, right. So what we see though in older adults is that there are individuals, interestingly, who have had no history of any kind of mood issues, depression, anxiety, anything. Yet maybe at age 60, suddenly they become worried about things that they were never worried about, or maybe like irritable, and they were never an irritable person, and there's no precipitating factor. There's no stressful thing going on in their lives. So it turns out a subset of those individuals, they have the beginnings of Alzheimer's disease, and that's their first symptom.
Wow.
So we call this has been called mild behavioral impairment. It's sort of the counterpart to the diagnosis mild cognitive impairment. And so not everyone who has this has neurodegenerative disease. I want to make sure you know that. So if you've noticed your parents more irritable, they may have like stressors going on that you don't know
Yeah.
about. But I would say that it's important to get checked out. And
Mm,
I've been doing a lot of education with mental health providers out there to be of older adults to be like, or midlife even, to be like, you may be the one to catch Alzheimer's disease really early.
mm.
Now that we have treatments for the earliest stages, like, for you to direct them to get that checked out is so important.
Right. That's so fascinating. I'd heard of mild cognitive impairment. It's thrown out a lot, but I'd never heard of mild behavioral impairment. That's really, really interesting concept, and definitely something, I guess, to both look out for, but not necessarily stress yourself out too much about either.
Correct.
Um, but great practical advice. Thank you so much. Speaking of, I guess you mentioned earlier that you were in clinical trials and Alzheimer's research as well. I believe you have maybe almost 2 decades of experience in this. So you've watched the field evolve dramatically over this period of time. So has there been like a paradigm shift that you've witnessed, and like what, like, if so, like, what is that? And are there any like really exciting advancements in Alzheimer's that you would want to share with our audience?
Yeah, so many things. So I would say that the major paradigm shift is there's now hope.
Yes,
So,
I love
so
that.
while I talk about there's always hope. Like, yes, we don't yet have a cure, but there's hope that there's so many things we can do. But that
Absolutely.
hasn't been the general feeling,
Mhm.
overall. And what has led to this are the advances in our diagnostic abilities.
Mhm.
And then that has spurred treatment advances to where now we have 2 approved Alzheimer's medication treatments
Wow.
that are for the early symptomatic stages. So those are called mild cognitive impairment or mild dementia, which
Mhm.
is also more recently called stage 3 and 4 through the Alzheimer's Association
Oh,
guidelines. And so these are medications that very effectively remove the beta amyloid plaque buildup from the brain. And so those are these changes in the brain that happen to people, and they actually start 20 years before any symptoms. So they're, going on in our 40s, 50s, 60s, way before the symptoms start. So these new drugs show that if you start these at these early stages, you have a statistically significant slowing of the progression of cognitive and functional decline compared to those who
incredible.
don't take the drug or were on placebo in the studies. So these have been approved for 1 to over a couple years now or more, and that has led the much more excitement in the field. Like,
Mhm.
for people that are very focused on medication treatments, they're finally like, there's something we can do. And so there is more money and attention being directed to this field.
Mhm.
And it's opened this window where now there's much more talk about, when these drugs were approved, there's certainly a lot of people in controversy about, are these really worth the money
Right.
to help people at this age who are already affected by Alzheimer's disease? And so that term that we use is clinical meaningfulness.
Mm.
So now we're talking more about like, and studying like, what do individual people and communities like really need and want?
Mhm.
And this is being studied more rigorously.
Mhm.
And that's so uplifting and heartening to me, because it did feel like for a long time there was a disconnect between the neuroscience community or the Alzheimer's science community and the human beings that
Mm.
are living with this and
Right.
experiencing it. Now, that disconnect is smaller, but it's still more than I would hope. So,
Baby
but
steps.
yeah, yeah.
I'm curious, have you prescribed these medications to anyone, and have you seen like changes in your own practice?
Yeah, so I was the site principal investigator for the phase 3 trials of both of these medications.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dr.
so
Cabral, look at you.
so those are called lecanemab and donanemab. So
Uh-huh.
they're anti-amyloid monoclonal antibody treatments. And so I would see in the study, I was blinded to if they were on drug or placebo,
Uh-huh.
but there were people who were hanging in there doing well longer than, maintaining longer than I would have expected. And then it turns out, when they unblinded some of those people were on the active drug.
Wow.
Now, and in the real world, I've prescribed, and similarly, people seem to do better. Now,
That's
they
fabulous.
I want to say, like, this isn't a cure. They will continue to progress.
Right.
They're progressing slower. And so what that means is that they can do more of what they want to do. And so their families also benefit, and the community benefits from that
Yeah.
having their involvement. So
It's the
yeah.
quality of the years, not necessarily the quantity, I feel like. So that's awesome. And it's giving years back to people and their families to them. So I think that's a huge win all around. And I just love it. So, we've been talking a little bit about social isolation and being social and things like that. And I've been really excited to ask this question, patiently waiting. But we've kind of seen through our work here at Curiaya that social essentially the smoking of our generation. And even the Surgeon General, I think, made a comment saying that it's being socially isolated if you're over the age of 65 is worse than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So how does loneliness literally change the brain, if it actually does? And what does this mean for our aging population? Is there something that we can do to start preventing this maybe?
Yeah. So, firstly, great question. I love this topic. I do want to draw a distinction between social isolation and loneliness.
Mm,
Those are studied, they have different definitions and they're studied independently. Obviously, there's a connection. Now, I'm not, that's not my area of research, but I have certainly, it's a really important topic to me, and I've learned a lot about it. And so I would focus on loneliness
mhm,
in this case, because that is really that subjective feeling that you don't
mm,
have what you need.
mhm,
And in terms of other people and relationships, and because you could be someone who's a loner, or you're fine, or you could be someone who's
mhm,
in a group, in a big family or a big community, but you don't really feel truly connected
mhm.
to anyone. So you could feel lonely. And so,
Absolutely.
and we know that studies consistently show that the marker. So I think it's like age 45, that big Harvard longevity study shows that it's the number of quality relationships that predicts your health and well-being and longevity,
Mhm.
overall. So those who have the best, strongest, high quality relationships in their 40s live the longest and the healthiest.
Wow.
So that's really meaningful. And I think we're still understanding what happens in the body. So we
Mhm,
know that someone who's lonely is basically gets into a high stress state, pro-inflammatory state, chronic
mhm,
inflammation, and that wreaks havoc on the body in a number of ways. And I think it just depends on the individual and their genetics and things like which body system, which organ system, does it hurt the brain the most? Does it hurt like the cardiovascular system? All of it. And so I think part of this we don't know because we don't have the technologies, maybe and even the imagination to know like what to measure or how to look for it.
yeah.
And even in my field, I'm brain centric,
Uh-huh.
but more and more I'm like, well, where is this stuff in the body? Like maybe we can measure something better in the body than in the brain.
Yeah.
But this is a huge area, and I think that this time is ripe for, and what you're doing is amazing with.
Aw.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really inspiring, and bringing older adults and young people together. I would imagine it's a reciprocal benefit.
It really is. As actually started out as a caregiver on the platform myself, and I think truly it was one of the most, I only did the caregiving for less than a year, but it was genuinely one of the most life-changing and monumental experiences of my life. Every single one of the relationships I developed was meaningful and held a place in my heart. And one of my most beloved patients passed a little over a year ago. I'm so happy and proud to say that I still keep in touch with his family, and I've even had the opportunity to get lunch with his family like after his passing. And it's something that I will be telling my children about in the future. So I feel like it's the value of the intergenerational relationships is really magical, and that's something that we do witness at Carrie each and every day. Patients literally light up in ways that we haven't really hasn't really been studied in the past with maybe traditional caregivers. So from, I guess, a neuropsychiatric perspective, what's happening in the brain during an intergenerational connection, and how can we like harness this lighting up effect to kind of, share the love with everyone?
Yeah, I don't know that we really know what's happening in the brain, like with an intergenerational experience. I would love to study that. So let's do that. Um,
Oh my
you know,
gosh,
I,
I would absolutely do it.
I would think firstly, like there's some bonding hormone happening.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it's different for the young person versus the older adult. So,
Absolutely.
um, so I just in my I have a podcast called Resilient Aging Unfiltered, and
Mm.
I'm about to release the latest episode with one of the foremost scholars of wisdom, Dr. Dilip Juste. So he's written books on this. He's doing research. He's a geriatric psychiatrist emeritus from UCSD. So he's studying. He talked about what's going on in the brain as far as we know with wisdom. What people who have wisdom, and it seems to be there's a connection with the prefrontal cortex, the limbic system, the
Mhm.
amygdala. And we talked a little bit about intergenerational experiences. And from my perspective, um, there's the older adult imparting the wisdom, and there's a younger person who's bringing some kind of, I think I'm calling it curiosity right now. It's like
I
an
love that.
openness and an energy that the two connect. And I don't know what the biologic substrates are of that in the
Mm.
younger person in that setting, but there's a nourishing that's happening. There's a nutrition that's being given to each other, that lights up both, whether or not they are conscious of it, I believe. And um, but I do think there needs to be some openness on both parties, even if it's a little, like, okay, because when you're young and you're like kind of volunteering or doing some like job that maybe will help you on your resume too,
Right.
um, you may not realize like the benefits at first, and you're just doing it.
Yeah.
But then I'd love to hear like
That's what I was gonna just say. Like from my experience, well, okay, to be completely, let's take it back for a second. So I've ever since I was a little girl, I was like, oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to help people. I want to kind of like be a positive person in someone's like a lifetime. And so I was like, I love kids. I love hanging out with kids. I want to have 10 kids, like all of this stuff. So I want to go into pediatrics. And that was literally exactly what I wanted to do until the moment that I went on my first care shift. And I was like, wait a dang second. No one had even told me that this was an option, first of all. Like, I feel like a lot of the times fields like maybe geriatrics or hospice or palliative or things like that are just kind of overlooked and not really talked about as much, especially to the younger generation. So I didn't realize that it would be benefiting me the same amount, if not more, to be engaging and interacting with the population. And for me, I'm an immigrant, and my grandparents live in a completely different country, and I sadly have not had the opportunity to see them in almost 7 years now. So it really filled a gap in my heart and like allowed me, which I again did not realize was going to happen at all until I was in that position and in that situation. And I was like, I'm feeling a type of love that I genuinely didn't realize was missing from my life. Like this relationship that I'm like building is so different than any other one that I have. And it really does start to feel like family, but in a different way, because it's not like mom or dad or like brother or sister type of family. It's like, oh my gosh, these people have lived 4 times as long as I have. This, like the patient that I was just referring to, fought in World War II. And to get to like hear those experiences and accounts first person, it's just that I wouldn't change for the entire world. But yeah, sorry, I got on my little soapbox there. So I do feel like the benefits are definitely both ways, and it's just not nearly as like thought of or studied when it comes to the younger side.
Yeah. So I love that you're creating this space and these opportunities for young people,
Absolutely.
and make it in an appealing way for them
Mhm.
that they will definitely benefit in some way. And they probably, yeah, they have no idea all the many ways they'll benefit. And I would just say these benefits continue and may not show up till you're older. I was a hospice volunteer when I was pre-med, and I didn't know anything about Alzheimer's disease or these brain diseases of aging at the time. And I was sitting with a man who was, in the last days or weeks of his life. He was in the severe stages of that. And so he was just going on and on, like rambling, how it can happen, and like telling stories. And I would just ride the wave of whatever he was saying and ask like follow-up questions. And then, just like in a neutral way, like and it was like, I was with him for 2 weeks, and it was my last day there. And usually I was sitting down, so he couldn't really see me. He would hear my voice. And then, so when I stood up to say bye and thank you, he hadn't really moved. And he surprisingly, he picked up his hand and like grabbed my hand, and he was like, thank you. And it was so I didn't realize at the time, cause I was like, okay, you're welcome. And then now what I know, I'm like, that took so much for him to summons,
he literally awoke something in him.
Yeah. And he was like, and it was like, it's my point is like, I didn't know at the time. I was like, you're welcome.
That's such a good point. You don't even realize something is going to affect you. And then 5 years down the road, you look at it and you're like, wait, maybe that's why I did this, or I am doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So, and we've been focusing on our, pre-meds and younger generation, but, so I guess generally for our younger listeners that are tuning in right now, or going to listen in later, what should they be doing now to protect their brains for the next 50 years? Is there a checklist or something that you would recommend everyone starts doing this weekend?
Yeah, well, I think it's all about finding the right balance for you. Right. So you have people who are like hardcore exercisers, super fit, but they have no real quality relationships or friendships, or they drink a lot, like they drink a ton, or do certain things, certain things in their bodies that are actually very counterproductive. So it's like looking at trying to look at everything, and obviously we're humans, everything's in flux a little bit, but it's for you yourself. So I would say the 3 big areas that we should all always be checking in on, how are we doing with that, would be moving your body, body moving, however that is for you in your phase of life. Then social connection.
Yes.
And I'd say especially for men, that are getting into the 40s and later, we've found that it's clear that gets, in our current society, there aren't as much spaces for them to gather. And so they really have to make intentional efforts. And so starting in your 20s is great. Have men's groups and things, which that might be a controversial topic for some, but that's fine. And then the third one would be cognitive stimulation. And so what does that mean when you're 20s and 30s? It's getting out of your normal day-to-day and trying new things, and getting out of your comfort zone, pushing yourself a little bit, even if that's okay, I'm going to talk to the cashier. I'm going to be friendly, or I'm going to travel to this new place, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be I'm going to learn, Mandarin. You don't have to go.
That's pretty cool. And that's the thing too. There's so many resources at our disposal these days to kind of be able to do that. I don't know, you don't have to sign up for a Mandarin class and then 2 days in, you're like, wait, actually, I don't like this. I want to try Japanese instead. You can just Duolingo or something and start today and kind of do it while you're sitting on the toilet even. I feel like there's the convenience of the technology.
Yeah.
Amazing. So we need to use it more. Thank you. You just motivated me to re-download my Duolingo, actually, because I've been meaning to for so long, and I'm like, I love learning languages. And there was a time in my life where in high school I was taking 3 different languages at the same time, and I just completely forgot about that when I got to college. So I love it.
Can I hop on that and make a follow-up suggestion, which is Duolingo, fine, but also what's available now is you can have a virtual teacher in another country that's going to be maybe less expensive, honestly, sometimes. And then you can get on a system, see them one hour a week or 1 hour every 2 weeks. And you're going to get a lot more out of that. Maybe.
Oh yeah, especially because it's a native speaker. That's a really good idea. I love that. I used to, I guess, quote unquote hack for doing that was I would watch my favorite shows in those languages. So like, I don't know, I've rewatched Friends a couple of times at this point. So I'd be like, all right, let me go try and find like a French, like Friends, and then like watch that and understand as much as I can. So that's what I used to do. But learning it from an actual human being sounds like a pretty good idea. And it builds on the social connections. So it all ends up working out. So I feel like this is a question that maybe a lot of our audience might have in the back of their mind, but might not let them think about. So let's get real for a second. If I'm 45 and I forget where I put my keys, or I walk into a room and I'm like, wait, why did I come in here again? How worried should I be? And maybe my question here is, what's normal aging versus, oof, I should probably call my doctor territory?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's coming up a lot more now because we're talking about Alzheimer's prevention more because of all the advances. So, you know, these diseases are one of the major risk factors is age.
Yep.
And so if you are 45 and your trouble with your thinking is actually due to Alzheimer's, that is very, very, very rare at this point. And there are these rare autosomal dominant mutations that cause these early onset Alzheimer's disease. So you would probably know that in your family.
Okay.
But if you are 45 and you're having trouble thinking, there are so many other reasons that could be happening. There's 100 reasons, right? So, so what you want to do is look at your life. Like I'm in that age range right now, and so when these things happen to me, I say, okay, I have so much going on in my life now, and a lot of change.
Yeah.
That with this, I launched this business, and I have 2 school age kids, and so like every day for me is different now, and so if you're not in like a set routine and everything's all set up for you, like you're going to have the main thing I think can happen is you're not paying attention and you're not focusing, and so that's the most
attention to everything all the time.
Yeah, right. So then there's ways to improve one's attention and one's focus. And I'd say the first thing to do is to try to do that, to pay more attention or to catch yourself. Because I've caught myself being like, oh my goodness, I really just stopped listening to my family member when they were like, I went off in my head to like whatever I was doing next.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm not going to remember because you know what, if you can't pay attention, you can't even encode it in your brain. You can't store it. It's just, it doesn't even go in, right? So you can't retrieve it later, right? So that's the point. And so, yeah, so I would say where we're moving towards, there's, there's these treatments if you have the early stages of Alzheimer's disease, but I would say if you're 55 or older and that happens, then now is the time not to wait, but to get checked out, but like to talk to your doctor, to be like, let's figure out what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that something you just bring up to your primary care physician and then they'll kind of see what to do from there? Or do you have to go straight to a neurologist?
Definitely with your primary care physician. And even, before you get in with them, start keeping track of what you're forgetting and look at your lifestyle. Like so this is what the primary care doctor is going to ask you. They're going to be like, how's your sleep? Do you have new stressful things going on? How's your mood? What's your routine like? Like, are you on medications? Do you have like chronic or medical issues that are not in good control, like diabetes or high blood pressure, which, 45, that's less common, but that's absolutely possible. So they're going to do a panel of labs. They're going to examine you. And then if there is concern after that, they'll get brain imaging. You could have thyroid dysfunction. There's 200 things that could be causing that at that age.
And just one of them is Alzheimer's. So that's a little comforting to know, I feel like.
And that's much less likely at 45 to be the cause.
Yeah.
But eventually we're going to have treatments that are started in this, asymptomatic period in these 20 years before the symptoms start, when we identify these changes in the brain with these biomarker tests we can do to look for the amyloid plaques and the other things that we know contribute. So that's going to happen probably in the next 3 to 5 years, I would say.
I love it. That's great. It's within most of our audience and everyone's lifetime. So that's really, really awesome. I have One more question that I want to ask you, but I definitely want to give our audience an opportunity to ask their questions as well. So we'll do that. And then if we have time, then I'll get to ask my last question. So our very first question here is going to be, let's see. Super cool to hear about your work at BrainLove. If you had unlimited resources and no constraints, what current challenge in brain health would you most want to solve? Oh, I like that.
Oh, I love that question too. Thank you, Maggie. Ooh, unlimited resources. So I would love, so to get at those three things with brain health for all of us, so that's cognitive stimulation, movement or physical activity, and social connection.
Yep.
So I want to address those by making like a really tricked out older adult play center where it's staffed by young people and it has a variety of things that are appealing to everyone. You know, of course, there's like the physical activity, there's the classes, there's the music, there's the art. It's, you know, like sensory based. And there's also where the older adults are helping tutor kids with their homework. And there's things that like it's everyone's benefiting because in that space, everyone is getting, I say like the way I feel as a physician for this population is people are transmitting things to me. Like I feel calmer a lot of times after visits. You know, they have often older adults have more nervous system regulation just by getting older.
Yeah.
And so, and us young, well, I'm in midlife, but you know, young people need that. Like it's normal. And so just creating like these spaces that are full of life and possibility and imagination.
I freaking love that. It's a community center at its core, like where it's intergenerational relationships, community building. Okay. Call a real estate agent because we're going to make this happen immediately. Oh my goodness. I have so many thoughts and ideas in my mind. I will be sending you a follow-up email about that. And we're going to get this show on the road. I know you're busy with BrainLove, so I can take the bulk of the work, but we can do this. I love it. I love it. We have one more question here. Oh, if you could give one piece of advice to a family who just received an Alzheimer's diagnosis for their loved one, what would you say?
Okay, I would say it's each person in their own way needs to engage in mindset work. Okay, so that mindset is that yes, okay, we have this really difficult thing, and we are going to open up to each other, be open and honest, and know that there's so much we can do to live the lives we want to live, and this is actually an opportunity for growth and transformation that's hidden in there maybe, but it is there. And when these crises and tragic things happen, it does create a window inside of all of us that we can step into, and to have a whole family together, be able to be open and honest. Those families do the best. That oftentimes families everyone try to protect the other one. Like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Like the patient is like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. And the care partner is like, I don't want to like hurt their feelings. But it's like, then it's too late if you wait 10 years or 5 years, right? Because not everyone can engage in the conversations. And so by opening up that space for, sharing real feelings, grief, loss, it really leads families to be stronger. And people do amazing things. Check out my podcast episode with Mike Zindel. He's like my hero, someone who has the early stages of Alzheimer's disease, and he's changing the world. And he talks about like how him and his family came together when he found this out. So
I love it. Is there, can you just really quickly give yourself a plug? Where can people find your podcast?
Oh, sure. So any of the Spotify or Apple podcast platform, look for Resilient Aging Unfiltered.
I love it. That's amazing. I'll put that in the comments later on as well for people so that they can find it too. But that's great. So just really coming together and having open and honest conversations and laying it all on the table, because that's all we can do, huh? We got another one here. This is actually a question I had in my list that we didn't get to ask, so I'm really excited. But what's your take on when patients should start considering and should people even consider biomarker testing?
Yeah, so at this point, biomarker testing is only recommended for people who have symptoms. So older adults who have memory loss and cognitive changes that could be due to Alzheimer's disease. Or there are some other non-specific biomarker or tests we can do for other neurodegenerative diseases. But so in terms of Alzheimer's, at this point, to be tested without symptoms is not recommended because we don't have any Western medicine approved treatments for if you're asymptomatic but you're on the path to Alzheimer's disease. And I would say we know that there's not protections if you are asymptomatic and you have the p-tau217 abnormality showing that you have probable Alzheimer's disease going on. You can't maybe get long-term care insurance. There's things that it's a pre-existing condition at that point. So I would say if you're 55 or older and you have cognitive concerns, then you're a candidate for biomarker testing.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's certainly good to know. And then this one we did kind of touch on a little bit, but if there's any additional thoughts you have, given your background in Alzheimer's drug development, what do you foresee as some of the most promising upcoming research related to slowing, which I know we kind of talked about a little bit, but maybe potentially reversing the functional symptoms? Can be very early stage or just theories. He won't hold you to a prediction.
Yeah. So our field is heading in the direction of where the cancer field, the way the treatments are there. So there's combination treatments. They're targeting more specific to the person's disease entity. And so we have the anti-amyloid monoclonal antibodies. We're getting more better at how those can engage the target, the amyloid, with less side effects. And so delivering those better. Plus, in addition to those, we're looking at anti-tau medications and making progress with that. And also studying those GLP-1 agonists that are very popular weight loss drugs, but are being studied in Alzheimer's disease. So those are, there's theories on how those impact and can improve the brain. And a lot of, some of that is about like metabolism and inflammation, anti-inflammatory. So it's a multi or combination treatment approach. And there's many other things happening. And I want to wait to see, because, I've been in this long enough that a lot of things don't pan out, and it's not necessarily because they don't work, but it's because of the trial design and who they're bringing in. I would say maybe a big thing that everyone should be aware of is that we know now that most people who are older who have one of these neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's have a second or a third neurodegenerative disease pathology in their brain at the same time. So when we look at brains at autopsy, we see, okay, this person has Alzheimer's disease throughout their brain, but also they have Lewy body disease changes, or they have this something else called TDP-43 proteinopathy. And so treatments will be targeting multiple neurodegenerative disease entities. So we will therefore have biomarkers to detect all of those. That's where we're going. And it turns out, if you're familiar with Lewy body disease, which is in the Parkinson spectrum, there is this Alzheimer's Lewy body disease co-pathology that we found out now that those people progress really quickly. So if you've had a family member that progressed very quickly with their Alzheimer's, they probably had the Lewy body disease and didn't show the symptoms. Yeah.
That's so amazing. Interesting. I love it. I mean, it's great. Hope, again, is all that we could have. And I feel like this episode has been filled with lots and lots and lots of that. So thank you so very much. If you have time, maybe in one sentence, since you're, in my mind at least, rewriting the rules of Alzheimer's care. And if you could give one takeaway from this podcast, or just one thing from your approach at BrainLove, what would you want that to be for our listeners today?
I would say that knowledge is power. There's so much we can do to take control of our own lives. We're the only ones that can do this. And if you have something like this going on, or your family member does, the sooner you find out, the more you can do, and you can change the entire trajectory of the rest of your life in good ways that you never would if you wait and don't address it.
Oh, I love that. And I do think that that's really practical advice, because it can be a scary thing to think about, but knowing that there are tools at your disposal, and knowledge is power, and it always will be, is an amazing thought to leave our audience with. So thank you again so much for being here today and for spending this afternoon with us. I've loved every single moment of getting to know you, and we will be making that center together one way or another.
I love it.
Thanks again, Dr. Cabral. Have a lovely rest of your day.